My name is Catherine Thompson, and I'm here today to reject society's stereotype on strangers. And we've even given it a catchy little phrase, and that's stranger danger. And from generation to generation, we've been teaching our youth the same thing, and that's that strangers are bad. We teach it to them, their parents learn it, their parents teach it to them, they learn it from their friends' parents, they learn it in school, they learn it from their churches, and every single day they're being taught that strangers aren't a good thing. And I even remember the time that my dad taught me the stranger danger lesson. And I was about 4 years old, and I was running around on my street during the summer, and it was getting dark, and I had been out for a couple hours, and I had a couple of neighbors I was hanging out with. And then I ran back home, and he was freaking out. My dad was so mad at me, and I had no idea why. And I had never had a situation like this because since I was so young, I was always with my parents. But when I got home, I was sitting in our family room, and he sat me down, and he started telling me about how worried he was and about how I could have been hurt, and he would have had no idea. And he even told me this morbid little story about a little girl who was running around in her neighborhood just like me, and some guy came up to her and asked her to help him find his dog. And she got in the car, and they never saw her again. And as a 4-year-old, that really scarred me. And so after that, I knew to be very wary when I saw strangers, and I knew to always tell my parents where I was. And as I started to grow up, I noticed that all of my friends had been taught the same thing when they were a kid, is that stranger danger, strangers are bad, and everyone's heard that little catchphrase. I'm not saying that that life lesson is invalid, I'm just saying that it needs to be thought about in a little bit of a different way. So after I thought about that, I went and I started to look up the definition of stranger, because I wanted to see if there was a connection between danger and the definition that the dictionary gives to the word stranger. So I looked it up, and what I found is it's someone that you had no personal acquaintance with. And what I don't understand is why are we taking this person that you've had no personal acquaintance with and pegging it with something dangerous? Because if you think about it, you get in fights with your friends all the time, but they're still your friends. If you just think about all the arguments you've been in with your friends, it's quite a few. But if you think about strangers, you never get in a fight with a stranger. You shouldn't have anything against strangers. If I think about someone that's in Iowa right now, I have nothing wrong with that person. I can't be mad at them because I've never met them. Whereas my friends, I could have been in a huge argument because she could have said something behind my back, and all of a sudden I'm mad at her for, 2 hours, and then we work it out. But that's how it makes us stronger. So why is society teaching their children that strangers are dangerous if it's just someone that you've never met yet? So this idea got me thinking about a quote that I had seen previously, and that's, "A stranger is just a friend I haven't met yet," by Will Rogers. And I thought this quote was really cool because if you think about children, when children grow up, unless you're lucky enough where your parents are best friends or your mom and her mom's friend and they have 2 kids at the same time and they just grow up together, and some people are like that and they have a best friend since birth. But for most kids, if you think about your idea of where you've met your friends, most of it you meet like high school, middle school, elementary school. You still have to meet people, and they're still strangers at one point. So that's what I thought was cool about this quote, is because a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. So someone you've had no personal acquaintance with, that's your stranger, but they become your best friend. Now, a problem that society's recently been having is that there's this new trend going on, and that's that everything is awkward. Like, oh no, like everything's awkward. Like, I'm spinning around in circles. Everything's awkward. Everything that happens in society is now being pegged as awkward. As you can see with this image, there's 2 people. They're just sitting there through all 5 of these situations. And then all of a sudden one of them says, well, that was awkward. What is awkward about this? Okay, the problem is that children, when they're younger, it's okay then, because when they're meeting each other, when they're having personal interactions, it's fine. They're talking to each other, and all of a sudden they become best friends. But as people are getting older, all these personal interactions are starting to feel awkward to older people and to teenagers, to any age group that's above the age of like 5. My English teacher from sophomore year taught me a really valuable lesson about all this. She taught me to embrace the awkward, because when I was a sophomore, this was definitely still prevalent. Everything was so awkward, and so she taught us all, why don't you just embrace it? Like, what's so awkward about a situation? And then the people around you will just laugh it off, and then you can start a conversation out of it. And this actually helped me a lot when last year I went to Mexico, and I was with my family, but I didn't want to hang out with my family. So I was out in the ocean, and I expected the waves to not be there, but I was wrong. They were huge. And so I rented a boogie board for the day, but I guess in Mexico they didn't have those convenient straps that hook onto you. So when the wave knocks it out of your hand, the wave knocks it out of your hand. So I was riding a wave, and all of a sudden it flies back. The board flies out of my hand and flies to shore. And it hits a group of teenagers that I had seen walking around all day, and I thought they were so cool because I was like, how cool would it be to take all of your best friends to the beach and hang out with them? So I was really jealous. But my board just went and smacked them in the face. And it was the most uncomfortable situation I'd ever thought of. So I went back and I got my board and I took it back again, and then I went back out in the ocean again. But then it happened again, and it hit them again. And then I got my board back, but it happened a third time. So the third time when I went back to get my board, one of the guys came up to me and he started a conversation and he started talking to me. And how we kicked it off was that he thought it was really interesting that I said, "Where are y'all from?" And he was like, "Wait, what'd you say?" I said, "Where are y'all from?" And I'm from Virginia, and apparently I say y'all. And I don't say it in an obnoxious way like some people think Virginians would, but he had never heard of this before. And so we started a conversation, and turns out that none of them had known each other, that they had all just met each other that day and had introduced themselves. So this awkward situation that I have encountered is one that I'm really thankful for, and I'm really thankful that I ever had it happen to me. Because without having been in that situation that made me feel uncomfortable, I would have never met these friends who maybe I don't see them very often, but they're definitely necessities in my life. So this idea made me think about this other quote that I'd seen before, and that's, "You built your wall so high that no one could climb it." And I think this is really important because you can't always put your guard up. You can't always have your walls really, really high and not let anyone into your life that you don't know. And that's what I have an issue with, is this dangerous idea. It's because strangers aren't always dangerous. Strangers can be good outlets for your life, and they can help you relieve stress, relieve tension in your life, and they can just be really cool to talk to. And if you think about it, if you were just walking around the hallway at school or walking around your office at work, and you stopped in front of someone you've never talked to before, and you said, "Hey, will you be listening to me real quick, or maybe in a couple minutes?" And what are the odds they would say, "No, I don't want to listen to you, I don't want anything to do with you"? No, most likely they would say, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to listen to you. I can meet up with you in 5 minutes and we'll go over there and talk." And even if you had never met them a day in your life, if you started talking to them, it wouldn't be an awkward situation. They could give you good advice, and they would love listening to you. And I know if someone came up to me, I would definitely love to listen to them, because that's really cool that someone would be open with you to come up and talk to you. And so this made me think of a camp that I go to every summer, and this camp is called Montreat, and conveniently enough, it's in Montreat, North Carolina, and it's a week long, and I go with a group of about 50 people, and I know all of them. And once we get there, the first day, they split us up into about 50 different small groups all around the camp, and each small group has about 30 people in it. And the key about these small groups is that you do not know a single person in your group, and they make sure of that. And so while you're in this group, the first day you meet with them, you're with them 3 hours a day, and you can say anything you want to them. You start by just introducing yourself and playing small little games and stuff, but by the end of the week, you're telling each other all of these secrets about your life and all of this really deep information that they have never told anyone back home. It's a great place to just pour out your information about yourself that no one has any background knowledge on. They can't do anything with the information, and you're pretty much sworn to secrecy that you won't say anything. And I mean, it's just common courtesy not to say anything. So this camp is really important to me because every summer when I go back, I use it as an experience to grow in my personal self, however I'm trying to say this. I use it as an experience that's not like any other. I don't have any other place in my life that's like this camp, and that's why I always make sure I go back. I would not miss it for the world. And that's what I want to leave you with today, is that you can't build your wall too high. You can't have this idea that strangers are always dangerous. And that's what I have against this stranger danger. I know my thoughts have been really scatterbrained today, but I'm trying to connect them together and say that, like, strangers, they're not always dangerous, and they can be really, really important in your life. They can be such essentials, and people forget about that. So stop what you're doing some days. If you're ever having a hard day, don't think things are gonna be awkward. Talk to someone you've never talked to before, because it may just be the best decision of your life.